Hey everybody, welcome back. It's been a big week in news, and starting off on Tuesday, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed the bill that had the American left ranting for weeks, the Parental Rights in Education bill, which has been falsely labeled by LGBTQ plus minus slash dollar sign propagandists as the Don't Say Gay bill. The various activists, media personalities, and politicians condemning the bill claimed that it would prevent teachers from saying the very word gay or other related terms in schools, and that this bill will literally endanger the lives of LGBT students. Clearly, none of these people have ever read the bill, either that or they have, and they're lying through their teeth about it. Here is what the relevant portion of the bill actually says. Quote, classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3 or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students, end quote. You notice what was conspicuously missing? The word gay is not mentioned at all. In fact, no particular words are prohibited in any way. This bill bans the sexual indoctrination of young children from kindergarten up to grade 3. And who could possibly oppose that? In the eyes of many conservatives, this bill actually doesn't go far enough, and that's my own view as well. These topics should be banned at all grade levels, because this is not the kind of thing we need to be teaching our children. They're at school to learn about math and history and language arts and science and academic subjects, not ideological and, quite frankly, religious subjects. An interesting point about the arguments against this bill is that while its critics insist that sexual indoctrination is not taking place at all in schools, they're vehemently opposed if anybody were to try to ban it. So what they're saying is it's not happening, but if it's happening, it is great, and it should be. Those who oppose the bill say that children who may have LGBT parents, like a kid with two dads or whatever, or family members that fall into LGBT categories, they won't be able to talk about it at school, or teachers with a homosexual partner won't be able to mention that to their students. So on the first point, as far as students go, they're not banned from saying anything. They can discuss amongst themselves and with teachers whatever they want about their family life and whatever relationships they may be exposed to. As for the second point, good. Teachers do not need to discuss their love lives with young children. And if any other adult approached a child and began telling them about their sexual orientation or their gay partner, it would immediately be obvious that this person is a creep and should not be trusted around your children. So why should teachers be any different? They are there to teach educational subjects, and that is all. One particular organization that has come out against the bill is, of course, Disney, and this has been a big controversy as of late. After the signing of the parental rights bill, they called an all-hands meeting to discuss it, and thanks to the reporting of Chris Rufo, the public has now been made aware of what goes on behind Disney's closed doors. And it is pretty scandalous. Here's a clip of LaToya Ravenel, executive producer, talking about her not at all secret gay agenda. Here's the clip.
Little pocket of proud family Disney TVA. The showrunners were super welcoming. Meredith Roberts and our leadership over there has been so welcoming to my not at all secret gay agenda. And so I feel like I felt like it was, maybe it was that way in the past, but I guess something must have happened in the last, they are turning it around, they're going hard. And then all that momentum that I felt, that sense of, I don't have to be afraid to let's have these two characters kiss. Let's in the background, I was just wherever I could, just basically adding queerness to if you see anything queer in the show, I'm proud family. But I just was no one would stop me, and no one was trying to stop me.
Inserting queerness wherever she can, and no one would stop her. And she came right out and said the dreaded words, the gay agenda, not at all secret gay agenda. Before, if you were to say something like that, you were looked at as a conspiracy theorist. Gay agenda, what are you talking about? There's no agenda. They're not trying to convert your kids. Well, listen to them. She said it. Here's another clip of Alan March, production coordinator, on exploring queer stories.
Space.
Yeah, I've had the privilege of working with the Moon Girl team for the last 2 years, and they've been really open to exploring queer stories. And I'm on the production side, part of the work that I feel like I can put in is making sure that we take place in modern day New York. So making sure that that's like an accurate reflection of New York. So I put together like a tracker of our background characters to make sure that we have like the full breadth of expression. And we got into a very similar conversation, Carrie, of like, oh, all of our like gender nonconforming characters are in the background. And so it's not just a numbers game of how many LGBTQ plus characters you have. We got the further, the more centered a story is on a character, the more nuanced you get into their story. And especially with like trans characters, you can't see if someone is trans. There's not one way to look trans. And so kind of the only way to have these like canonical trans characters, canonical asexual characters, canonical bisexual characters is to give them stories where they can like be their whole selves.
So they're bringing the LGBT characters out of the background, making them main canonical characters, and they're really pushing this stuff into the mainstream. They're going all in on this. And here is Disney's corporate president, Carrie Burke, on her queer children and having many, many, many LGBTQIA characters in their stories. Here's a clip.
I'm here as a mother of two queer children, actually, one transgender child and one pansexual child, and also as a leader. And that was the thing that really got me, because I have heard so much from so many of my colleagues over the course of the last couple of weeks in open forums and through emails and phone conversations. And I feel a responsibility to speak, not just for myself, but for them, to all of us. We had an open forum last week at 20th where, again, the home of really incredible, groundbreaking LGBTQIA stories over the years, where one of our execs stood up and said, you know, we only have a handful of queer leads in our content. And I went, what? That can't be true. And I realized, oh, it actually is true. We have many, many, many LGBTQIA characters in our stories, and yet we don't have enough leads and narratives in which gay characters just get to be characters and not have to be about gay stories.
A transgender child and a pansexual child. Very, very rare coincidence that two gender minority children would be born in the same household. And I wonder what could make that happen. Perhaps the gender radicalism of their parents. But and Carrie Burke has also said that she wants a minimum of 50% of all Disney characters to be from the LGBTQIA community, I guess, or a racial minority, I think within the next year. So they are pushing this as hard as they can. And the big companies are taking off the masks. They're showing us who they really are. Disney has lost its magic, whatever magic it ever had. I didn't grow up watching Disney productions, but I knew the characters. I knew some of the characters. I read the children's books, and now seeing what it's become and the gigantic leftist propaganda machine that it is now, I'm glad that I never did become a Disney fan and was never allowed to watch these kinds of things and grow up with it, because it gets into your mind, especially at the ages of children that are watching these productions. And I think it's time that a childhood without big brand entertainment became the norm. Disney has done this to themselves. I'm not telling you don't listen to me, listen to them, and then decide if you want to continue giving them your money. Ron DeSantis has also made some remarks in an interview with Tucker Carlson after these recordings were released. Here's what he said.
What is this bill?
Well, this bill is about providing protection so that they know they can send their young kids to school without them being sexualized, without a school telling a young girl, for example, that she may really be a boy. And if schools are trying to do things that impact the health and well-being of the kids, and they're they're undertaking certain services, that parents have a right to know that and provide consent for it. So this is a real bill that empowers parents, it protects our kids, and for a company like Disney to say that this bill should have never passed. First of all, Tucker, they weren't saying anything when this was going through the House. They only started doing this because the woke mob came after them. But put that aside, for them to say that them as a California-based company are going to work to take those California values and overturn a law that was duly enacted and, as you said, supported by a strong majority of Floridians, they don't run this state. They will never run this state as long as I'm governor.
You can't argue with any of that. These are winning issues, especially when you compare the work of governors like him to what the Biden administration is doing. American citizens are facing bare shelves, unaffordable gas prices, and food shortages, and Biden's government has prioritized the gender options on passports. As of April, the government announced that U.S. citizens will be able to choose X as their gender rather than the standard M or F, male or female, because this is what people really want to see their government doing. Don't worry about financial issues at home. Don't worry about what your kids are learning in school or that we're messing around on the edge of war with a nuclear power. You can now put X on your passport. Everything's going to be fine. The Democrats are completely out of touch with the reality and the common people. People think about real issues, not about which letters are on government-issued documentation. We need people in politics who do things that actually matter, like Ron DeSantis and any of the other conservative politicians that are fighting these gender issues. That's where it's at. It's not in tax cuts, although those are great. It's not in the fiscal issues. It's in the cultural issues, because that's where people live. And finally, as we close out, a story that highlights the insanity of gender radicals. A medical student, Kaishel Del Rosario, tweeted out the following earlier this week. Quote, "I had a patient I was doing a blood draw on see my pronoun pin and loudly laugh to the staff. She, her? Well, of course it is. What other pronouns even are there? It?" End quote. "I missed his vein, so he had to get stuck twice." And that's the end of the tweet. So that is disgusting. A guy has a shred of common sense and is reasonably confused by a woman wearing a pronoun pin declaring that she is indeed a she, her, and she is so petty and vengeful about it, about a question about her pronouns pin, that she misses his vein on purpose. And I've had that happen before, not on purpose, but it is not a pleasant experience. It hurts. And she has since deleted both the tweet and seemingly her entire profile, and has thankfully been placed on leave by the medical school. But the Wake Forest School of Medicine gave a pretty pitiful explanation about the events that occurred. They say, quote, "Our review determined that the description of the patient encounter on social media does not reflect what actually occurred. We also determined that all of our procedures were followed while caring for this patient," end quote. So yeah, it sure sounds like procedures were followed, doesn't it? Your policies to inflict unnecessary suffering on your patients if they disagree with your gender ideology. And then they try to explain it away by saying that if the student doesn't hit the vein on the first attempt, they are supposed to call in a certified medical expert to perform the second attempt. And they say Del Rosario did this, and whether that's true or not, it still sounds like she missed the vein on purpose. She issued an apology to the school in which she, of course, denies everything and fails to apologize at all. She writes, quote, "I am writing this apology for a very irresponsible tweet that I sent on Twitter, that I highly regret. For the event mentioned in the tweet, I was performing a blood draw on a patient, and during our conversation, they had shown dismay at my pronoun pin. I calmly shared my thoughts about pronouns and did not escalate the situation further. I never intended to harm the patient. I understand how my misguided tweet read, that I did intend to harm them as retribution. In an emotional moment, I sent the tweet out without thinking about the consequences," end quote. So, calmly explained while jabbing the needle further into his arm. I have one question. If she followed all procedures and just meant, I missed his vein out of inexperience and he had to get jabbed twice, totally unrelated to the pronouns thing, why is she on leave? And I'll also answer that question. It's because everybody knows what she did. and why she did it. The school knows, and they're trying to run cover for her and save face for themselves at the same time. And this goes to show you the gender ideologues have no pity for anyone with a differing opinion. They wish the best for no one but themselves, and if they are offended in the slightest, they will make sure that you suffer, even at the level of an injection into your arm. And the other side of the political aisle and the ideological debate is revealing their true colors. Believe them when they show you who they are. And with that, we will conclude this week's video. Enjoy your weekend, and I will see you back here next time.